So your entire world literally just came unraveled, and you're forced to seek shelter in the one place you don't want to be. The other pink palace with the other mother patiently waiting for you to arrive. Failed in disgrace and conceding to have buttons sewn into your eye sockets. Which I know I've ranted about this before, but how can the Beldam be taking children's eyes and sewing buttons into them? You're damaging the product, madam. Or at least you would be if the eyes were anything but a MacGuffin, because the power levels of the other world are going all over the place, with or without the presence of the eyes. And now that Coraline has collected all 3 of the ghost spheres, she has to survive a major boss fight, which, unrelated but also very related, this final Beldam face-off in the video game is ridiculously hard. But let's try to go into this scene with an open mind and watch Coraline, quote, escape from the other world. Hey guys, I'm McGann. You're watching The Fangirl, and seriously, if you're gonna steal my stuff, at least link back and give me credit. You didn't come up with this on your own. You thoughtless thieves are ridiculous. Also, I could not find a good place to stop this scene, so it's going to be really long today. So let's get started. Coraline just ran for her life inside of the other pink palace and slammed the door behind her. The black cat is riding in her messenger bag, so he's here. And as soon as that door shuts, we lose all the white light of the void and the house is dark. Because for some reason, it always has to be night in the other world, except when it's the void. So Coraline is trying to catch her breath while the audience gets to absorb that the interior of the other pink palace looks perfectly normal and untouched. Also, now that this is in my head, I can't get it out. But if eyes equal power, then by transitive property, the other mother has at least one more ghost orb hidden to keep the wonder of the pink palace stable. I mean, what is keeping this building from crumbling apart with everything else if the eyes are that important? However, the other world has become a game of whose line is it anyway, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. Because as soon as Coraline starts walking down the long hallway towards the Beldam's living room, all the wallpaper, and only the wallpaper, starts peeling itself up the walls. Now, this doesn't feel like the house is getting sucked up into the void. It almost seems like time is catching up to the house. And that the other pink palace has sat in the other world without maintenance for 150 years. Well, that is, at least the walls look that way. The floors, carpet, fixtures, and furniture don't seem to be majorly affected by whatever is going on right now. I also got really curious about this picture in the hallway, but when I lit up the room in Photoshop, I don't know, this kind of looks like Coraline's room. Most pictures in the other world are of the pink palace. So what do you guys think about this? And the rolling wallpaper follows Coraline to the open living room door, which now features all green lighting and fresh new walls that appear to be spider webs that, for no reason, are breathing in and out. There's also a lot of bug shapes affixed to what used to be solid walls. And we're not going to see this part of the other world again, so I'm really curious. Is the appearance of the walls breathing suggestive that the house itself is alive? Because that was sort of suggested in the book, that it felt like Coraline was touching a tongue when she was going back and forth through the corridor. But the house being alive and the house being its own magical entity is something that, honestly, I never thought of before. Unfortunately, the movie is not going to give us enough information to fully unpack that, so I'm just going to have to leave it here as an unanswerable question. But if you have any thoughts thoughts, please leave them in the comments. But entering the room, Coraline's looking around, looking afraid, as the bug furniture responds to her with tweaks and twitches, but nothing is moving as freely as it used to. It kind of has a Cinderella vibe where maybe the furniture used to be real bugs and they got magicked into furniture bugs. But oh man, that brings up a lot more creepy context. However, everything is acting this way to demonstrate that the Beldam is almost out of magic. And this makes it appear that she's unable to keep the visual end of her ruses up any longer. But Coraline's walking backwards into the room until she crosses the Beldam, who's sitting on her pillbug couch looking downward in the dark. She also looks nothing like she did the last time Coraline saw her. Similar to a narcissistic mother, the mask has fallen off. Coraline sees the monster behind it, and you can't just slip the mask back on and pretend like you didn't see everything behind it, so why try to hide it at this point? And this is so perfectly illustrated with the Beldam's face becoming this white, cracked, porcelain-looking texture, because Coraline can now see through the cracks in the Beldam's mask at who she really is. But aside from the face, the Beldam is taller, more pointy, rigid, bony, and jagged, with sharp hands constructed out of sewing needles. And she's annoyed that Coraline has brought what she calls vermin with her, referring to the cat. And Coraline is finally giving us appropriate reactions, because she gets lost in her fear for a moment and backs up looking shocked. But the kid knows she can't run away at this point. There's nowhere to go. So Coraline recenters herself, puts on a brave face, and says no. She brought a friend with her, but the Beldam doesn't really seem to know how to respond to Coraline's defiance, because she stands up and sidesteps the subject to reroute everything, which again lines up pretty well with the narcissistic parent. You just keep changing the subject and keep them on their toes so they're always on the defense. So anyways, the Beldam stands up even taller than before and tells Coraline, "You know I love you," in this really weird way, then hunches over and gently runs her pointy fingers across Coraline's chin and boops her nose, which, as we already established, Coraline hates having that done. But it's a power move to show dominance and imply that the Beldam finds Coraline to be some cute little non-threatening toy instead of her own person that might win the game. However, Coraline remains tough and tells the Beldam, "You have a funny way of showing your love." But the narcissist playbook says ABD, always be deflecting. So the other mother doesn't acknowledge Coraline's verbal challenge and instead asks where the ghost eyes are. Coraline produces the 3 orbs, but has to jerk her hand away before the Beldam can snatch them. Since this game had a magical contract behind it, I don't know if stealing the eyes back directly would work or not, but again, it gives off the impression that these balls were supposed to be very magical. So Coraline should have Wolverine claws that are shooting out thumbtacks or something. It doesn't make sense why she needs to be so tricky and brave when she should be teaming with a power level over 9,000 right now. However, Coraline responds to the attempted eye snatching, not like she's keeping the ghost kids safe, but as if she is still trying to play the game fairly. And it gives the impression that if Coraline had found her parents already, she would have willingly handed everyone else over to the Beldam. Because Coraline says, "Hold on, we're not finished yet." And the Beldam condescendingly smirks that Coraline still hasn't found her old parents. The other mother also taunts that it's too bad Coraline doesn't have the Seeing Stone anymore before she pulls that object out of her dress and tosses it into the very much not a fire and make it melt. Which doesn't make sense for a lot of reasons, the main issue being that stones aren't generally known to melt at the average fireplace temperature. But can we just look at the other mother's back for a second? Because the top of the spine is bloated up like a beetle body, and there are spikes coming out of it. I am so curious and also never want to consider what she looks like without clothing, but she seems to be some nightmare rendition of a turtle. Anyways, the Beldam is so proud of herself for flicking the seeing stone into the green flames. And the sweet ghost girl finally chimes in to communicate with Coraline that she needs to be clever because even if she wins the game, the other mother will never let her go. And actually that warning may be a lot deeper than we're realizing, because the audience hears that on the surface level, so we think in terms of winning or losing the game. But Coraline absolutely does not get home at the end of the movie, which, if you haven't been watching me ramble since scene 1, I will prove Coraline is trapped once again in another scene or two. There are a lot of little nails in that coffin to show that Coraline never gets home again. But as the sweet ghost girl finishes talking, Coraline notices a flickering of light behind the tiny door that leads to the tunnel, and there's the big bug dresser blocking it again. But what is that green light? The tunnels have either been gray or blue and purple, and we've never seen any kind of bright green light inside of Coraline's house. So, girl, that's a sign that that tunnel is just another extension of this very greenly lit room. She won't stop to think it through though, because Coraline quickly forms a plan and insists to the Beldam that she knows exactly where her parents are, behind the little door. And the Beldam knows the parents aren't back there, so she really plays into this, maniacally smiling and acting smug as can be, while Coraline insists that, yeah, her parents are back there, just open the door and see for yourself. However, the effect is exactly what Coraline wanted, because the Beldam waves the bug dresser to move over, unblocking the exit, as the other mother chokes up the button key. But what was even holding that inside of her skeletal frame at this point? Homegirl here looks like the last leg of a zombie surviving. But while the other mother is distracted, Coraline is backing away from her reach and then hears that squeaky rubbing noise from her mother writing "help us," back a few scenes ago when the parents were seen in the mirror. And the cat jumps onto the mantle to draw Coraline's focus to her itty-bitty parents trapped in a snow globe and trying to wipe themselves a clear window. The clearing only lasts for a few seconds before the snow overtakes the cleaned spot, but it's long enough for Coraline to notice, tear up, and acknowledge that her parents are in there. And all of this is happening while the Beldam is still prepping to open the small door, looking so satisfied that Coraline is going to lose the game. And Coraline just goats her, saying, "Go on, open the door, because that's where those parents are going to be all right." So the Beldam opens the door and gloats in a sing-songy voice that Coraline is wrong, and now she's going to stay here forever while holding up a needle and thread. And Coraline responds with such a weird motion. She holds up her left arm saying "no," then her right arm saying "I'm," and then she grabs the cat off the mantle and screams "not" as she flings that unsuspecting kitty towards the other mother. It does look physically awkward, but moving her arms like that got the Beldam to focus her attention on Coraline's body and not on the mantle or the cat or the snow globe. So it really was a smart move to keep the other mother unfocused and mentally unbalanced. And the poor cat is yowling for its life as he lands on the other mother's face and just starts clawing away for dear life, eventually knocking off her button eyes as Coraline gets her parents' snow globe in her bag. While the distraction worked, it doesn't take long before the Beldam gets a grip on the cat and flings him blindly across the room, where he grapples onto the bug dresser. Although I've said it before, I'll say it again, the button eyes don't matter. They are an aesthetic choice, because the Beldam can make anything it will, including realistic working human eyes. So it at any moment the beldam could make new buttons for herself or make eyes for herself. She does not need those specific buttons. Anyways, the beldam is so mad that she calls out that Coraline is a horrible, cheating girl and stomps on the ground, sending the floorboards flying upwards and revealing the entire room is a huge web. But Coraline, why in the holy are you standing in the middle of the room right now? Now, I'm not saying she should be within arm's length of the beldam, but couldn't she dip around and run for the tiny door that's wide open? Where was she going, being in the middle of the room? Well, I guess Coraline wanted to be in the most geographically inconvenient place, because as soon as all of the floorboards are gone, the center of the web dips far down, making the entire room unlevel. And the bug dresser starts to dip too, prompting the cat to nope right out of that room and run through the tunnel without even looking back at the vile betrayer Coraline. I bet Coraline doesn't even feel bad when she uses Yoshi to make a jump. But Coraline is at the lowest, most central point of the web, and a hysterically laughing, eyeless beldam is jumping down towards her. We can also see very clearly from this angle that the beldam currently has 4 legs shown. So 4 legs and 2 arms, that's 6 appendages, not the normal 8 that a spider has, which is incredibly strange, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments, because so many things have been done meticulously in this movie. Why would we be railroaded into seeing the beldam as a spider if she doesn't have 8 appendages? But Coraline starts to climb the webbing like a ladder, and she gets away before the beldam can get to her at the bottom, causing the beldam to really ham it up with her pretend blindness. Because remember, the beldam creates her appearance very deliberately. There is absolutely no way that she met that first child 150 years ago and got them to hang out with her and agree to sew buttons into their eyes, looking like the hot mess she is right now. So the beldam's powers are not as drained as she's acting. This is all meant to scare Coraline so badly that she won't ever open the tiny door again. However, Coraline isn't being very careful with her movements, and her bag gets stuck on the web, which isn't even sticky spider webbing. It's metallic, but releasing the satchel causes this metallic warbling that lets the other mother know exactly where Coraline is, and she starts climbing up in pursuit, which forces Coraline to start run climbing for dear life towards the tunnel. Also, the bug furniture has gotten caught up in the webbing like giant dead bugs in this massive 100-foot web, and they look so gross. But Coraline arrives at the open doorway, gets in, quickly grabs the button key from the other side of the lock, and almost gets the door shut before the beldam rips it open, screaming, "You dare disobey your mother?" right in her face. So Coraline kicks her in her eyeless face, knocking the beldam back for a second, but the needle hands are still prying the door open, and Coraline is struggling to get it shut. So the ghost kids ex machina ghost hands that now have the ability to physically work, and they help Coraline pull the door shut, breaking one of the needle hands off in the process. Okay, I'm calling shenanigans again. First of all, if the ghost kids could have been that helpful the entire time, then why haven't they been? They could have snatched the ball from the rat in the last scene, or helped out with Taffy, Spink, and Forcible, or even worked to distract the beldam. But they wait until now to do anything, and that feels so staged, at least to me. Coraline had to narrowly get away so she wouldn't bother that small door again. It had to feel like life and death stakes. And that's the only reason these puppet ghosts helped her right now. Also, even being magic, I don't buy that that old wooden door would have broken a metal hand apart. The hand came off and landed in that tunnel purposefully, but again, it had to look like an accident. And if you truly don't believe that this was all all orchestrated, then why isn't the hand moving right now when it can move in a few minutes? It's lying there dead, playing possum, because that's the perception it wants Coraline to have. But as Coraline locks the small door to the other world, the Beldam beats against it, screaming out in agony as a green light flashes. And this is seriously the scariest part of the movie. With every hit on the door, the tunnel shrinks, and Coraline is trying to crawl through to the other side as she's being violently shook around, all while there's heavy banging, and we see the green light getting closer, and we hear the screeching of, "Don't leave me, I'll die without you!" And Coraline barrel rolls through the end of the tunnel and barely has time to orient herself and smash her tiny door shut and lock it as the other door is charging at her, physically impacting the wall to her house and knocking Coraline down once the two doors meet. Whew, and this has felt like an extremely long scene. I wanted to cut this in half, but there was really no good stopping point with the flow of action. So I'm going to abruptly call it here for today. I'll throw in one or two comments, but editing takes forever and I'm exhausted, so please forgive me. Okay, first from Instagram, this is long overdue. Weeks and weeks ago, Lucia had commented that she has a pink palace tattoo, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to see it. She showed me the tattoo, and oh my goodness, is this not beautiful? Let's all tell Lucia in the comments how awesome that tattoo is. Then Emily Noon, 8125, mentions that Taffy Spank Enforceable have black button eyes and other Spank Enforceable have white button eyes, but young other Spank Enforceable do have black button eyes. And so maybe the Taffy version of Spank Enforceable have the black eyes because they look more like the younger versions of other Spank Enforceable. And you know, I had to go back and double check, but she is absolutely right. I had that detail a little bit mixed up in my head. It was only the old other Spank Enforceable that had the white buttons. But she also has a really interesting second part of this statement where might the buttons turning white in their old age symbolize going blind and having their vision fade away? And you know what? That is a really interesting way to look at it, and I never have before, and that's why I love talking about these comments, because there are so many little tiny things that you guys notice that I might not necessarily see from my perspective. But yeah, I think that's an excellent way to think about it, is that other Spank Enforceable in their young form have black eyes and the older ones have white eyes because they are losing their sight. And also, what happens when something ages? It tends to fade and not be the same color it was, especially if it's out in the sun, but there doesn't seem to be any sun in the other world. But this is a whole separate ramble, and my jaw is tired, so I feel like my words are starting to slur, so let's just say good job, guys. Love the feedback, love the picture of the tattoo, beautiful, and I might be overthinking it, but that's literally my job. And to any of my members here on YouTube, a huge bottom of my heart thank you for all of your help and support. If you would like to become a paid channel member, there is a link in the description below. Thanks again, guys. Love you. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that? Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.